I have to say something too.
Do you sync them editing?
Yeah. That'll give me my sound bars, and I can just match the waves.
Oh, so. Okay. I was wondering how they did that.
Cool. I have no idea how to start when we're not actually live.
That is kind of weird, isn't it?
Okay, I got it. You guys ready? Welcome to the podcast, everyone. This is PEP Talk episode 10, I believe. This is your host, Jason. I am joined once again with Seth, Dan, and Greg. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a different topic for everyone. We're going to talk about our background in the power sports. What machines have we owned? What got us started? And how it's evolved for us throughout the years. So you guys ready to tell some funny, entertaining stories?
Oh, yeah. I heard Seth has a new one.
Seth has a new story.
A new story? What?
Should we start off with a new story or save it until he gets up to this point?
Should we talk about like our first vehicles?
That's what we're gonna.
Actually, Seth has a couple good stories, so yeah.
Well, let's just go right around the table. We'll start with Seth and go from there. Seth,
I'll be last. That's fine.
Your very first.
I think we should go oldest to youngest. Jason, you're up.
Whoa!
I think Greg's actually a little bit older than me, actually.
Yeah.
But we won't talk about that.
Barney's been around for a long time.
So, Seth, you're actually the youngest, so we're going from youngest to oldest here.
Okay.
Technically. So, Seth, what got you started into power sports, and what was your very first machine?
My very first machine was a 1984 ATC 70 three-wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
Came down through my family, actually. My dad had it when he was younger, and they kept it in the family for, ever since, when did I buy it? Back in 2000, I'm going to say 2010-ish, sometime around there. So I grew up on a three-wheeler, and that's all I was used to. Me and Lynn, that's all we rode was three-wheelers, doing mud bogging, whatever else on a three-wheeler.
That's suspensionless, right? No suspension?
No suspension. So
tire pressure was your
We were going on rides, and I was trying to keep up with you guys for the longest time with no suspension. But then the next thing after that was a 1986 XR80, which was a really good learner bike because it had a clutch. It was a 5-speed. It had 1 down, 4 up. So I learned the basics of what a dirt bike's like. And
now, before you go any farther, the ATC 70 is in fact the same one we had here on site and did the short course trips in, correct?
Yep.
And I rode it.
Yes, you did.
And it's a fun little buggy. Sorry.
It's very fun.
Continue on. I just wanted to make sure to mention that. If you guys haven't seen that video, check out my main Appalachian Mountain Riders YouTube channel. We have a video of pitting the ATC 70 of Seth's up against the Razor 170, and we used Zippy too, right?
Yep, Zippy.
Dan drove Zippy. And that's a fun little video. So check that out if you haven't seen that. Enough plugging my main channel. Seth, continue on.
So the XR70 or XR80, I didn't have it very long, but it taught me pretty much how to ride a dirt bike and using the clutch and all that. So I learned the basics on that. Of course, the first 30 seconds I had it, I crashed it into a tree. But so I went from that to a 2003 TRX 250, which in my opinion is like one of the best four-wheelers ever built, just because I had it for so many. I still have it, and I put, I don't know how many miles you could even say. Dad always calls it the million-mile bike, because I put so many miles.
That's the one you brought with you to our Hatfield McCoy trip a couple of years back, and ran, and it kept up with Mighty Mouse and Lynn on his. Did Lynn have the Suzuki then? Was that 450?
Yeah, that was a
400, yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, four-wheeler's been through a lot. By far the most ridden thing I've ever owned. I still ride it every once in a while. I mean, it's kind of beat up, to be honest. Like I said, million-mile bike.
If you count man hours on that, you're going to have to double it, because it's always a double-up ride almost all the time with that thing.
That's true. I had passengers on it almost every time I drove it, so you can add some more wear and tear with that.
You rebuilt that motor in that while back?
Yeah, because a ride actually up here, we're up on the hill.
Winter ride.
And I couldn't figure out why it kept shutting off.
Winter ride, wasn't it?
And I'd never had any problems with it. It kept shutting off. Every time it would get hot, like somewhat hot, it would shut off. Here I got home and found out there was not a drop of oil in it. And I rode the entire ride without a drop of oil, and I couldn't figure out why it was shutting off.
But
that's amazing. I did not see.
We have to mention it is a Honda.
It is a Honda.
And it did not seize the motor or anything. Nope. You were able to ride that whole day.
I rode the entire day with it doing it. Like I mean, we were in several, I don't know, probably 6 inches of snow or more.
Yeah, so you weren't just easy. I mean, you were on the throttle
man.
to bore
I
through
was
the
just-
snow.
I mean, I was like maxed out like almost the entire ride, just trying to go anywhere. So I would say it's extremely, extremely tough vehicle. Because I put a top end in it. I don't know how many miles ago I'd say that was, but
Not very many.
no, it's fairly new
you
top end.
you probably
on it,
haven't
but-
rode it much since you've done that, right?
No, I
You
haven't
had a
ridden
dirt
it
bike.
much.
Yeah, you moved on.
I got to the dirt bike. So then after that 4-wheeler, which is probably of all the things I've had my favorite, just because I've owned it the longest and rode it the most. But then I went to the, I don't know what year was 88 or 89 CR
88.
CR 125, which came down through. I call it the cherry corner bike. Like that's kind of what I think of it as, because it went to Larry Brink first, and then it went to Dan, and then it went to Tom, and then it went to
That's an interesting
me,
story.
and then it went back to Dan, and then Dan eventually got rid of it. So that bike, I call it the cherry corner bike.
Future episode, we're gonna track down that bike and buy
Yes.
it back.
That's what I actually thought about that. Seriously.
Buy
I
it
thought
back,
we need to
fix
find
it up.
It's only been rebuilt twice in the whole.
That could be my first dirt bike.
Oh my, that would be a perfect first bike. Extremely comfortable to ride on.
It was
Extremely comfortable. Great in the woods too, because
not overpowered.
no, it wasn't overpowered, but it was still fast enough you could keep up with a dirt bike.
TW 200.
450s.
Yeah.
It was a great all-around bike.
What size was it?
125, 2-stroke.
Okay.
So it was a screamer, but it was a really good bike. Didn't have that one for real long. I did have a crash on it, trying to do a wheelie, of course.
Yeah, about
Got
a
some
year.
road rash. Of course, Dan has some memories with that as well, road rash.
Which we'll probably get to when it gets to be Dan's
Oh,
turn.
yeah.
We'll have some good stories there.
So that was a good bike. I ended up selling that back to Dan, of course. And then the next bike was the bike I have now and ride now is the 07 KX450.
Mm-hmm.
And I said my Honda 4-wheeler was the funnest. I mean, that was it is still really fun, and I enjoy it. And I
That's
probably
fun.
had the most fun over the years, but I would say that 450 is obviously more fun now. So
Well, it's probably the most powerful buggy you've had.
by far.
So.
Bike. How bike?
Buggy. Bike. Sorry, yes.
Jason's used to buggies.
I'm used to buggies. People will yell at me, though. That's like calling side-by-side cars. Everyone puts a big kick over people calling side-by-sides cars.
Yeah.
So.
But my bike, it's not. I mean, I don't think there's a lot done to it. If anybody could give me some info on this, it'd be nice. So CMR is engraved to the side of the engine. I don't know who that is for sure, but CMR did the engine work to it when I bought it. I didn't know who it was or where it's from, but they did engine work to it. It has an exhaust and whatever engine work, and as far as I know, that's it. But it rides very good.
It does have a little bit of work done to it. You think?
I think
Something's got to be done.
it says CMR and then exhaust, so that's all I can tell you.
With what was done to the same bike that I had, I'd say you had some stuff in the top end done to it because
Something I would assume because
it'd keep up with my 450.
yeah, and another thing to gauge it off of was Cooper had that 2018 KTM 450, which are very fast bikes,
Smoked it.
and every time we did a race, I'd smoke it. And I wouldn't say smoke it by a lot, but I would beat it every time. So it gives you an idea how fast it is compared to a newer bike. That was a 2018 KTM 450, so it's been a very good bike. I've had it for 3 years now and haven't had any issues. So I'm very happy with it.
Cool. My turn?
Wait, age here.
Danielson, that we going by
Yes,
age? Okay,
yes.
Dan. We will turn the reins over to you. Tell us your experiences.
You got an hour or so?
Hey, Dan.
So I got one.
Lots of time. Lots of time.
Does the bike downstairs count? Or
That's
no?
a street bike. We're talking
Okay, so it
off-road
doesn't
power sport.
I've had it off road.
Well,
That doesn't
but
count.
it's technically
It's
a
a on-road
street bike, Dan. So.
That's okay. Whatever. So I started off with a Quad Runner 1989 Suzuki Quad Runner 160. I have to agree with Seth. His 250 was probably one of his best four-wheelers. My 160 was probably one of my best four-wheelers that I had. It went through a lot. Everything Seth's bike went through, mine went through. Everything mine went through, his went through,
Oh yeah,
and vice versa.
those
They
bikes were like buddies.
His was a 250, mine was a 160, but it could keep up with his 250.
Oh, it was amazing.
It was so much smaller too. It's funny watching a 220-pound fat kid ride the thing around and still smoke a bigger four-wheeler. But I had that. Never crashed it except for the diversion ditch below your house.
Yes.
I hit that
I was
thing,
there for that.
didn't see it, nose dived right into a bank and stopped me deader than a doorknob on right over the handlebars. Other than that, never rolled it down a hill specifically. Seth. Then I went from that to that 1988 CR125. I had the CR125 for, well, I bought it before winter and it blew up. Rebuilt it over winter. Took it out right after winter. Totaled it with our buddy. We were racing down a strip cut and I hit him about 60-ish mile an hour and it just totaled the whole thing. And it broke my collarbone. Almost broke my neck. Made my back go numb for months. I mean, I couldn't feel half my back for the longest time. It was an interesting.
See, so you guys that have listened and watched my channel for a while, when we give Dan a hard time about this, now you start to see why we do. It's not just us giving Dan a hard time. There's a foundation here and a reasoning why we give Dan such a hard time.
There's a good reason for it, yeah.
In fact, I bet you for almost every buggy he's probably going to talk about probably has a similar story, am I guessing?
For the most part, I mean, that's the worst one. I mean, that is the worst one. It's not been as bad since. I mean, I basically almost killed myself, or should have killed myself on that. It was just terrible. Went from that, sold that to our buddy Tom. That's whenever he rebuilt it. He's actually the guy that I hit too with it, so it kind of makes for an interesting story there. Because he bought it from me and fixed it. Yeah, then he blew it up. Yep. And then Seth bought it. So,
Jerk on the bike.
I had that. I had a 1989 or 1990 something DR250 I bought off another guy from church. Had it for a little bit. I bought it, sold it. It was a flip bike. Didn't really do much with it, but it was comfortable. It was just like the CR125. It would have been a good trail bike, but I didn't want to keep it. Brother wanted it, but I was like, nah, if you don't want to pay for it, you're last on the list. So I sold it.
Listen to that brotherly love there.
So I sold it. He would have did the same thing to me.
Yeah, right,
if anyone knows him,
he
he would have done the same thing. So I had that, sold it. I sold all that, to buy, 16 years old, you got to buy a car and whatever else. So I did that. Didn't have anything for a little bit. Then pretty sure I had a KX80 for a little while. That thing ran great. Before I had that, I had that YZ250, that's right. Had that thing for a couple months, swamped it.
Oh, yeah.
In Jason's pond out back.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have that on video? I don't think we do. Because I went through it.
It's on Facebook. We shared, shared it on Facebook.
Then we had video from phones and stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't have any fancy
cameras. It's still on Facebook. I pull it up every once in a while. So I think you tagged me in it, but I saved it underneath the thing. So if you want it, I can send it back to you.
There.
But had that YZ250 for a little bit. Paid $50 for it. Put a $300 top end on it. Run it for 3 months, and the rod went through the front of the engine.
Like clear through, shot out like a missile.
Just went right through it. Put a big old hole right in front of it. Didn't ruin the sump. It just ruined the front of the cylinder. I bought a cheap eBay piston kit. Not a good idea. Very bad idea. It shattered the piston right away. Traded that for an RM250. Had the RM250 for a little bit. Didn't have no money into it. Sold that. Had a KX80. Run that for a while. Seth rode that one. That was a fun little bike.
It was a really fun. It'd be great for trails around here.
If it had more low end torque, it would have been great. But it didn't have the low end torque. It was a screamer bike. It had to be in the power band. If it wasn't power band, it wasn't.
I mean, it was also an 80 with a 200 plus pound.
You should ride an 80 that's running the way it's supposed to.
I would like to.
Yeah. So most of these bikes I just bought and sold. I never even really rode them. It's just I had like a month or two on them, and out the door they went.
It's like the flip
made
stuff.
Profit. Yeah, I did. I made a lot of money doing it, to be honest. I mean, look at all the vehicles I bought out of it.
Yeah.
But
you get bored quick, so that keeps fresh.
Yeah, it does. And then my brother had a couple quads that I basically claimed them as my own because I'm the one that fixed them. I'm the one that rode them. I'm the one that broke them. And I'm the one that fixed them. But he's the one that paid for it, so we're good. I bought his 400EX off of him. That was a good running quad. Had that for, I'd say about a year.
So we did a lot of riding with that.
I mean, we had it for probably 2 to 3 years total, but I owned it for about a year.
See, I actually read that one a decent amount. That was fun.
That's on Jason's YouTube. That has all kind of fun stories with that. I think we hit, was it 72 or 73 when we changed the sprockets on that one?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun quad.
And that was the one you had also put cheap eBay or Amazon parts on.
Yeah, the axle and then the hub.
Yeah.
Didn't learn that.
I rolled it down in the rail grade, doing all that. Also rolled it in the yard. Dad's like, oh, I'm gonna blow some donuts with it. And I was like, oh, he's blowing donuts with it. I'm gonna blow donuts in the yard with it. So we went to town blowing donuts in the little shell pit that had no grass in it. Yeah, I dug down, hooked, and went, choof, right over it went. That was a good time. But the quad runner 160, I crashed into stuff a couple times, just nose diving and stuff. It had very minimal suspension travel. It was very, very small quad for like 80 or 90 pound rider. And I was on it.
Yeah.
So,
you can imagine suspension and how it was working on that.
But I never crashed the 250. Never crashed the 250 RM. Never crashed the. Oh, I did crash the 80.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Me and Jason, we're witnesses for that.
First thing is, can we do it again so I can get it on video? Yeah. Found out if you have a small bike and you ride a wheelie from trees and you come up in between a crest of two fields and the wind hits you, it's gonna blow the bike right out from underneath you.
FYI, that's a really good excuse.
Wasn't somebody was filming that? What am I thinking? There's video of you. We can see you come up, but then you disappear behind the hill, and then we never see you again. Or am I just imagining that?
No, you're just imagining.
I'm probably just
I don't think we had a video.
Maybe that's just my mind's
weren't
video.
recording it. There was also the same night we got it stranded out on.
Watching fireworks.
Yeah, watching fireworks.
Yeah.
So we had to throw it in the back of a Pioneer 500 and haul it into bed.
That was a Pioneer 1000.
Yeah,
was
the
it?
1000.
1000. We had 1000.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
That was a fun night.
FYI, coming up over the hill was hilarious. Me and Jason watching.
Oh,
He came up in a wheelie and it just starts wiggling all over the place. Wham!
Then again, a 220-pound fella on a KX80 that should only be meant for a 90-pound rider. So that I did crash that one. I never crashed the RM, never crashed the YZ. I did crash the other YZ that I bought shortly after because I traded a 400DX for that.
YZ450.
Yeah, it's YZ450. Did crash that. Jason shared some videos of that. I sent him. Thank you. I think that had a lot of views in like a matter of a couple of days. It was like over 2,000.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Let it sink in. That's right. That's the new catchphrase. Let it sink in. Or let it kick in. It was let it kick in. Oh, I just gotta. Let it kick in.
Yeah, I kept that one for a while. It blew up.
We did a lot of riding with that because that's when I had the 450, so we did a lot of riding.
It's like every other night we were riding with it because I worked in town not away, so it was easy to ride when I wanted to.
We did a lot.
It blew that one up. It's getting chased by not saying what. Dropped the valve and sent him through the head.
Did this, was it something with flashing lights maybe perhaps?
Yeah, I didn't notice the flashing lights.
It was an ambulance waiting.
Oh, okay. Wait for the crash. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
got a
sense.
stretcher, you're ready.
There goes that Dan McGee. We better just follow him. We'll get some work. We know he will.
Sold that. I had a KX 250 at the same time. It was a 92. Rebuilt it, sold it, didn't even keep it, didn't even hardly ride it. Seth rode it, didn't run very well. No. It was pretty well beat. It needed way more work than what it needed. I just fixed it up enough to sell it, and then I sold it.
Pretty well beat. Nothing but a heap.
It looked brand new, though. I mean, it was in really good condition, but it sat outside because someone tore it apart, left it to sit outside in the rain, and it filled up with water and rusted everything. So that did not fan so well. So I cleaned it all up, got as much out of it as I could, and then I sold it for a lawnmower and $500. Sold a lawnmower for $800. So I made a decent profit.
You made a decent profit.
Then the lawnmower blew up. Anyway, so
Dan, I'm starting to see a trend here, either involving you wrecking or stuff blowing up.
My uncle bought that lawnmower from me, and I mowed the yard with it 3 or 4 times. Never had a lick issues with it. Took it out to our camp. He mowed the field with it. It's like, man, this thing's leaking oil. Grass is 3 feet tall, and he's mowing it on like level 2, and I'm just like,
yeah, okay.
But I had that, had the KX 450, had it for a little bit. Ended up selling it to make some repairs on the truck that I have. So I didn't get to keep it very long. It was a fun bike. Never crashed it. It was the same bike that I was talking about with Seth's. His was, we thought, built because my YZ couldn't handle it. Or hold a candle to it. Then I had the 450 put together, and we run it
They were
pretty
both
consistent.
really
We switched bikes and run it again, pretty consistent.
Oh,
It was,
yeah.
whoever got the jump was the one that got the victory. It was, or whoever missed a shift or whatever else. But that was a good bike. Loved it. It was a 2008. YZ was a 2007. The 400DX was a 2001. The KX was a KX 250. Two-stroke was a 92 or 93. Can't remember what the 80 was, but that was the last thing I had. Sold that, and I haven't had anything since. I've just been mooching everybody else's stuff.
And how many years now have you been saying you are going to buy a side-by-side? Like the past 4
The worst thing to do is listen to somebody when they tell you, like, hey, your brothers live in South Carolina, buy yourself a nice car to travel with. Don't listen to that. That's a bunch of baloney. Someone tells you to buy something, don't buy it unless you want it, because then you're stuck with it. You can never get out of something what you have into it with a loan or repairs or any of that other stuff. It's
Life lessons from Dan.
Mm-hmm.
I went through probably $1,500 or $2,500 beater vehicles, run them and basically half blow it up to the point where I could get almost a year out of them, just beating the crap out of them, and I'd turn around and sell them after I blew them up for what I paid for them. So going from that to a loaned vehicle was a huge turn. It made it a struggle. Because, I mean, you don't take care of something for so long, then you take care of something because you have to, and you have a loan on it. And then you have to fix this stuff, or else you're paying something that's sitting in your driveway and it can't move. So, yeah, that's why I had to sell my dirt bikes. I had to fix my truck. I think that's bad.
But hey, as long as you have friends that have machines, why do you need your own, right?
But yeah, exactly. As long as I help,
Just like friends that have winches on the front of their.
Buggies can winch you out.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You don't need a winch then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to remember. Did I have anything else?
Yeah.
There's probably been a stray machine here and there. I bet you.
I had an RT100. I got off a guy at church. It blew smoke rings.
Oh.
Needed a lot of work. It ran when I got it, and I had it for a little bit. Well, I ran it for a little bit, and it needed so much work, but it was such an old dirt bike, like early 80s dirt bike, that parts for it were really hard to get unless you were a collector and you knew exactly where to get stuff.
Mhm.
So I ran it. Yeah, I had to use the cable on top of the carburetor because it didn't have a throttle on it. It was all broken, seized, and I just pull it and run it around the yard a little bit. Ran great. It would also blow big old hogging smoke rings out of the exhaust because it was a two-stroke, and whoever had it cut the tip of the exhaust off and pulled everything out of it. So every time you'd run it, it'd sit there idle, and it'd blow smoke rings, like 4 or 5 out of whack. It's like an old tractor. I mean, it didn't even sound like an old tractor. Coolest thing ever. Sold it. I think that's it.
That rounds out your history of machines.
I only totaled a couple of them.
Not too bad.
And the ones that I blew up, some of them were my fault. But then, life lesson, don't buy cheap eBay pistons or anything because they don't hold up at all. Like, you might get 4 or 5 hours out of it, but, Matt rode it. He reefed it a little bit. I reefed it a lot. I mean, I got it stuck in that mud pit twice. So that probably didn't help anything. But that was, the CR wasn't my fault. I started it, ran around the yard for 5 minutes, and it just stuck wide open and blew up. Wasn't my fault. Ended up rebuilding it. That was the only 3 that I blew up out of all my 4-wheelers was the dirt bike, the 400DX, and that, or not the 400DX, the YZ450, my bad, and the 250.
Mm-hmm.
Both Yamahas. Both Yamahas.
What are you trying to say there, Dan?
One was a Honda too.
Uh-huh. I think the lesson here isn't, it doesn't matter what the machine was, it was just the fact that they were Dan's.
Hey, if you tell me something's indestructible,
Oh.
you tell me something is indestructible, I can prove you wrong real quick.
Dan needs to go to some car company.
Dan
and
was
test
Whistling Diesel before Whistling Diesel was Whistling Diesel.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh-huh.
That's very true.
At my age, I probably had more vehicles in a year than he had in the first 2 years of his YouTube channel.
Just think, Dan, if we would have had the sense to, or if YouTube was even around, I think YouTube was probably around back then, but it wasn't what it is today.
It was.
We could have had super huge channels at this point.
Oh my.
We would have had like millions
Just
of
off of
subscribers just off of Dan's shenanigans.
Just off of Dan. That would have been the name of the YouTube channel.
Dan's shenanigans.
Yep, exactly.
Perfect. Maybe we could just go ahead and start another channel here.
Mm.
Just 24-hour, just have a can on camera. Can on camera. And camera on Dan.
Well, I got that new bike now, so I mean, if you want some footage of that, I can get you some. Just gotta blur the speed occasionally.
Yeah, you have to come. Well, Greg, you're being awful quiet over there.
It's
So,
not his turn yet.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
that's what I'm getting at.
Oh,
Why,
it's not my turn.
why don't we go ahead and we'll have you take your turn?
Ooh, tough.
Well, okay.
'Cause
All right.
that'll make me the oldest, I guess. Then.
Yeah.
All right, my first vehicle
Or would you
was it was actually an industrial motor powered mini bike with a centrifugal clutch. You know, exposed centrifugal clutch, suspensionless.
Mm-hmm.
You never saw one of those?
I don't think I have.
Really?
Mm.
I
I
never
can't
saw a
picture
mini
this.
bike with just like a centrifugal clutch on it.
Like a go-kart.
Yeah, like a go kart.
Oh wait, yeah, okay, never mind.
Broken.
Except for
Yep,
mini bike.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still make them.
Yep.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
Like a tractor supply.
Yeah.
We broke the frame on that so many times. I still remember my uncle welding it and like catching it on fire. It was a
that's-
stick welder. Yeah.
And then taking it out, riding it a few times, breaking it again.
Breaking it again. My
doing it
friend's
all-
breaking the frame. Like it was really easy though. One because the frame once you break it and weld it was so brittle because of the welds. I mean, it would just break real easy.
Well, that's the nice thing about a little bike like that, though, is you could take it out, beat on it, and fix it up fairly easy.
I think my parents paid like $50
Yeah,
for it.
yeah.
But then after that, they got us. The first one they got they got my brother and I the CT 125,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy pulled in the driveway, and it was a Saturday. The guy pulled in the driveway, and we told him you have the wrong house. You know? it was a surprise for us, and yeah, it was a good memory. We had no idea we were getting it. Obviously,
That's cool.
the guy looked at us like he's gonna leave. You know.
Mm.
We rode that. That was really a street bike, but we beat that thing off road, and still in pieces in my parents' garage. But then after that, my grandfather had the CT 120 or the CT 90 that you fixed up.
Mm.
My parents bought that off my grandfather like a couple years after that, so we rode those things all over the place. So after we lost interest in the CT bikes, we got that Suzuki 230 quad sport was in 1986. We bought it used off somebody. I don't remember. I think we bought it off somebody in Indiana, PA. But we ran that thing all over the place. Put 1 million miles on that. Then after that, we went right to the Yamaha Banshees. My
Mhm.
buddy and I both bought Yamaha Banshees and sent the motors out to CT Racing in California. We got then it was the 370 long rod kit. And those things would scream. They would go well into the 80s.
Back in their day, those were like the hot rod.
Oh yeah, that
rods.
was it was an inline two-cylinder, two-stroke engine,
Mhm.
and one pipe coming out each side, and those things would scream. They were fast.
I still say, even in today's standards, there's
They're
still
still
some pretty
quick
quick
forward.
bikes. Yeah.
Indestructibly reliable too.
Yeah.
I mean, they put the right oil in and the right ratio, and they ran good. After that, it was what did I get after that? After the Banshees, then I went to I went to school then to get my degree, and I didn't ride ATVs for quite a bit. And then the next
That's
ATV,
sad. So sad.
I know.
College interfering with your
The
fun.
next machine I bought was the next off-road machine I bought was that 700 XX. We got those in 2000. Bought those new in 2008 or 9. Whenever Honda was just dumping them for like $3,900.
Trying to get rid of them because they weren't
Really?
popular. Yeah.
Yeah. So my buddy and I each got one of those, and I ended up just selling mine, and he kept his, and he eventually sold it to me, and that's the one you fixed up on your channel. And after that, then I I moved back here and into this area from State College, and that's when I got that 2012 Rhino, and that's pretty much it. And I got the I had the 700 XX, and I got that Rhino, and then I bought another Rhino that we built, and
It was awesome.
Raging Rhino.
and now I have the Kodiak, which I like.
Brand new 20. Is that 2021 or 22?
21.
It's
Yeah.
21, but still brand new.
Yeah.
Brand new Kodiak 700.
Yeah, I was out of the power sports industry for like probably close to 10 years. 'Cause
Yeah, long time.
I lived up in Belfont, and I was just working, and just didn't really have any. There was no parks up there or anything to ride.
Yeah.
Nobody up there with my friends were into it, so I missed it though. Whenever I could get back here, and as soon as I had the space again to have a machine, I got one. So
I can't help but notice a distinction here between Dan and Greg. Dan's been through so many machines, doesn't have any of them. Greg still pretty much has. You still pretty much have every machine you've owned,
Except the 700 XX and the Banshee.
but you still have another 700 XX
Yeah.
that you bought
Yeah.
for your friends.
Yes.
So
From your brother.
Hey, in all fairness, I
Because
was working
my,
off
my
a
friend-
quarter salary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
that's true. That's true.
I bought and flipped to get what I got. I didn't buy anything new.
Yeah. You just
Well-
get bored quick.
I
You
do.
need new machines.
Well, I went through about 10 years where I couldn't afford anything.
Yeah,
Too, so
yeah.
I mean,
That's what I'm going through right now.
at
Hence
Yeah.
the turbo.
your age, that's what you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
doing.
you're supposed to be going through that.
I got a
right now.
truck loan that's costing me so much money and a bike loan. Speaking of bike, I think your trail would be
Oh,
considered
yeah.
an off-road.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
because you
okay.
got the new
the
125.
CT 125 trail that I got.
Is that a 2020 or 2021?
That is a 2021.
Mm.
That is a nice looking bike.
It is nice.
That is a nice looking
It has
I
the
don't think I've seen
heritage
it.
of the old, like the CT90s,
The-
but little.
The pictures online don't do it any justice. That thing has a red color, man. It pops.
Mhm.
It looks nice.
You have an old one too, don't you?
CT90,
That's a
yeah.
90.
Yeah, the 90. Were you listening earlier?
I think he's zoned out. He's like, he's daydreaming back on old
90s
buggies.
I was.
He had all the
90s
memories.
CCs.
So,
That's
You
really for
blame the
me.
guy? Had some good stuff back then.
well, since it's my turn, you guys sit back, relax. I am a bit of a storyteller, so you're in for quite the adventure. So
You got
my
it, Phil.
journey into the power sports industry, we've got to go way back into my youth. Picture this, a young lad, raised in a family, not much money, couldn't afford nice machines. My first memory is one Christmas morning, I had two cousins. They woke up Christmas morning and setting out in their yard was two brand new Yamaha blasters, 2000 Yamaha blasters.
Oil injected.
One blue, one red. And I gotta say, I was so jealous. I had wanted a four-wheeler for a long time. They always had little four-wheelers, pretty much run-down ones before then that were fixed up. The Christmas morning they got those two, and I can just remember looking out the window and watching them ride around in the fields. I was like, oh. So that pretty much got me started and put that little hint of a power sports fever into my mind. Now, unfortunately, my first buggy was not as cool as a Yamaha Blaster. My first buggy was a Manco Dingo go-kart.
Oh.
But it was one of the bigger Manco Dingos that had the whopping 9 horsepower motor in it. That go-kart is sitting right outside, right down below. And I actually have some videos where I brought that puppy back to life. That was my very first buggy. And while my cousins were out ripping on their Yamaha blasters, flying around having a good time, I have to say, I kept up quite well in that Manco Dingo go-kart.
Until the oil injection fails and then they seize
On their
on the
blasters.
blaster.
Yeah, I think the red one did that within a year.
Yeah.
And my other cousin, the blue one, lasted a little bit longer than that. And we're going to talk about like some of our favorite memories here on a buggy, and I have a really pretty good funny one on that. I'll tell you later. But that was my very first buggy, was a Manco Dingo go-kart, and I rocked that thing for, I think I was 12, and it wasn't until I had graduated high school that I bought my first four-wheeler.
Oh wow, that's a big gap.
So I had that thing for a while. Now, kind of like Greg, there were several years there where I didn't really ride it much, going to trade school and still learning all that. But I think shortly thereafter I graduated, I bought my very first four-wheeler, which was a Yamaha Grizzly 660, an 06 660. And I gotta say, that's probably still one of the best four-wheelers I've ever owned. Simple, carbureted, no power steering. You could get on that thing and you could go. And I did a lot with that. I put Mudlight tires on that puppy and it would go anywhere. Four-wheel drive, diff lock. And a funny memory, I can remember going on a night ride with a bunch of my cousins and their friends one time. And they're all cruising around and they're sport quads, they're flying, which I gotta say that 660 would keep up with just about any sport quad out there they had. Yes, you were bigger, it didn't handle as well, but it had a lot of low end and could keep up with them sport quads through the woods. But anyway, we decided to go back and venture like an old gas well cut line. We live in central Pennsylvania. I don't know if you guys have any experience with gas well cuts or power line cuts, but it's usually a lot of hills and more importantly, a lot of deep mud holes that just pop out of anywhere, because usually the grass and stuff has grown up so high you can't see anything. So we're cruising around. It's nighttime. It's hard to see. They're all riding sport quads. We're going back this gas well road, or gas well cut. And I think pretty much all we did all night was try to pull people out of holes that we'd just be going and you just see the person in front just disappear into the ditch. And then they would sit there. And so then we were spent 5 hours trying to get them out and everyone else in the sport quad out. And then I had the privilege and the honor and the boastfulness to come roaring up in my 660 Grizzly, 4-wheel drive, mudlight tires, pop the switch into 4-wheel drive, pop that diff lock on, and I just right through every single mud hole. I did not get stuck in a single mud hole that whole night.
You were the hero.
I was the hero. And I was the only one with a winch.
Ooh.
And we ended up using the winch quite a bit on that night ride. And I think that was my very first night ride, actually, now that I think about it. And if you haven't been night riding, night riding's awesome. You can night ride on the exact same trails you rode on for years in the daylight and have a completely different experience.
Oh yeah,
It's
by
like a
far.
whole different experience.
it's a whole new adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that 660 Grizzly. Oh, let me think. I bought it new in 2006. And I had it 4 years? I think 4 years. And yeah, because I still had it when my wife and I was currently dating. And it wasn't until after we were married and I needed a plow machine. And I was using the 660 Grizzly to plow. But being carbureted in the cold winters, it was a little hard to get started with a big old heavy plow running diff lock all the time. It was hard to steer when you were plowing. So I kind of used that as an excuse to talk my wife into letting me upgrade to a 700 Grizzly.
Isn't that the one Jesse has? Your old 660?
No.
Or he has some stuff that you had on your 660.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that, Dan. You were right. I did do some simple performance upgrade. I upgraded the ECM on it with a performance one. And that Jesse did buy off me, and he's probably still running in the 660.
Actually, I think he
Or
had
the
it with
Rhino.
for
Yeah, I think he put it in his Rhino. So I did do that. But from the 660, I upgraded to the 700, an 09 700 Grizzly, fuel injected, power steering, a lot nicer for towing, or for plowing, and just as much fun to rip.
Just to get our own folder.
Not a whole lot bigger displacement, but just going from a carbureted to fuel injection to power felt just so much cleaner and smoother in that thing. Both Grizzlies pretty much indestructible. I think I changed oil in those things. Now, forgive me, this is when I was still pretty young and dumb. Maybe once every couple of years I changed oil in them. And they never gave me a lick of trouble. But
That's better
now,
than
I
bad.
will, at least with the 660, I will say at the 700 there towards the end, I did change it once before every riding season. So it did get changed once a year. And I did keep an eye on it, so I knew it wasn't bad and it was full. So some credit is due there. But
What about the air cleaner in that? How was that set up? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I did put an aftermarket air filter in the 700.
Because I absolutely hate the Kodiak's design.
Yeah, you said that
Grizzly
earlier.
Kodiak's design. It's ridiculous.
And so mine might have been different on my 700 because they they went through the 708 and now back to the 686 with the redesign and changed some stuff around. So I think I ran a K&N on the 700. And I think if I remember correctly, my filter was a flat like lid style. It was flat and set on top of the airbox and then the lid went on top.
Yeah, I think Cowie's still run that. Some of them.
So I'm pretty sure that's how it was. Because I can remember the K&N not being so big because it's like oblong shape or something.
Yeah.
And the K&N was a square filter with a plastic housing around it that fit the shape of the airbox. So that's how it was. It was like a set on top type of air filter. But from the 700, while I had that, we're not there yet. So here's the thing. At this point, I'm getting older. I'm working construction, doing a lot of bent over stuff, and my back was killing me. It got to the point where riding 700 was actually pretty hard on my back. I loved riding four-wheelers, but at that point in time, side-by-sides had been introduced. They were on the up and up. We pretty much had the Rhino, you had the Terex. Razors were around, but they weren't quite as popular.
That's back when base model stuff was actually base model stuff and affordable.
Yeah, there wasn't no bells and whistles or electronic gizmos on it. The fanciest electronics was an electronic locking differential.
I remember one of the first parts I ever machined for somebody was something for a razor. It was a manifold to run. It was a manifold to run coolant to a radiator for heat in the winter. It was one of the first parts I ever made.
Wow.
That was like one of the first razors.
Original Razor 800.
Yeah, this is whenever I was up in Belfont, PA, and yeah, that was he was one of the only guys that had it was around that had them too. Like, yeah, I remember that.
So back,
I remember not charging them enough either.
Yeah. Now, in hindsight, I should have charged him more.
That took some engineering.
So again, having back problems. So I thought side by sides seemed like they'd be a more comfortable thing. I'd always liked the Rhinos. They had been out for a bit at this point in time.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna see if I can find myself a cheap Rhino. I don't care what kind of shape it is in, as long as it runs. See if riding a side by side is a good alternative to riding a four wheeler that was at the time hard on my back. So I found a 660 Rhino. I can't remember what year it was. For dirt cheap, I paid like $3,200 for it.
Woo.
It had 3,000 miles, which probably back then that was quite a bit probably for this machine. Nowadays that'd be nothing. But I bought that and I loved it.
I remember 15 years ago, or 12 to 15 years ago, when I was into the ATVs, I remember going into a Yamaha dealer and seeing a Rhino there and literally thinking, like, who'd want that? You know, it's like the golf cart mentality. You know,
yeah, it's a golf cart with a dump bed. I mean,
I would.
He's
much
got the
rather.
golf cart mentality.
I would rather. Well, I mean, it was whenever side by sides were new and they were just basically utility vehicles. You know, with the exception of the Rhino.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and
I'd never been in one before,
Yeah.
and
I say this all the time. The Rhino still holds up today.
it sure does.
For an older side by side, you still see quite a few of those out in the trail. Especially when you're riding with Greg, because that's what he's riding.
Yes, that's my primary vehicle, man.
Well, I remember seeing quite a few of them actually out on some of our rides that we did.
Mm-hmm.
I would trust
Yeah,
that.
out there
I would
rocking.
trust that machine to drive around the world, man.
Mm-hmm.
I would too. That thing has never let me down.
Stop yawning!
excuse
Stop
me,
yawning into the
Dan.
mic, Dan. Come on. Am I boring you with my story? We're only about halfway through it at this
I
point.
need a pillow.
All right. So we're to the point in my story now. Where are we? I have the 700 Grizzly still. I have the 660 Rhino, and lo and behold, Honda comes out with a new side-by-side. Their Big Red had been around for a while, but that was a more utility. But they introduced the Pioneer 700. And I can remember seeing that thing and being like, that's what I want. I want one of those. At this point, I had, I think, at least two kids. At least one kid, maybe another one on the way. The 704, or the four-seater, you know, had the bed that converted into the seats. I thought, there is the perfect family buggy. Turns out, we really couldn't afford a Pioneer 700, but thankfully, we could afford a Pioneer 500. Lo and behold, Mighty Mouse has entered the scene. Back when we bought that, we did have two kids. That's one of the reasons why we went with the 500. Alana was born, Torin was just a wee little lad, and the 500 did have a bench seat, so it was big enough to fit all three kiddos in. So I sold the Grizzly 700, I sold the 660 Rhino, and bought Mighty Mouse. And Mighty Mouse is still with me. He's been with me ever since. Now, Mighty Mouse has gone through quite the transformation over the years. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we've done quite a bit of work. But that was really the staple point in my power sports career. Because
That's when YouTube came along.
I was gonna say, had it not been for Mighty Mouse, I may not have ever done YouTube. Look where we are today.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool.
Cool.
But as it so happens, even with the Pioneer 500, my family continued to grow. Lo and behold, hey, child number 3, little Kyler Roo's on the way. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, it's a squeeze to fit my wife, me, and 2 kids in the 500.
Well, of course, the priority is a bigger side by side.
Yeah, well, that's the excuse I use.
I
Anyway.
think it's more of an excuse.
But here is the beautiful part of this story is we kicking around the idea of buying another side-by-side to fit the whole family. Well, just so happens to come about that my wife's family from the Chicago area was coming in. And I may have suggested, it'd be awful nice if we not only had the 500, but, we had a Pioneer 1005 too. That way everybody could ride and enjoy their time here. And my wife says, you know what? That's just a pretty good idea. So we added the Pioneer 1005 to the fleet.
Woo.
So that worked out great.
I like that buggy.
I mean,
That was a fun one.
that was a fun. Compared to the Wolverines, no, they're not as refined. They didn't ride as nice. The rear seats weren't comfortable. I know Seth had a time or two. He had a seat belt shoved up into his back, jumping that, and that wasn't fun.
No.
I still have
There's
video.
somewhere.
I have video of. I think I have video. Yeah, I do have video, and it's up on my channel
Yes.
of that excruciating face you made, Seth. For our viewers that are watching the video feed here, can you do that face again?
No. Nope.
It was something like this. That's pretty close to rendition of it.
Probably.
You guys are listening to the podcast. Just picture my face all scrunched up with my lips pointed out and me staring at the sky in agony. That's pretty much how Seth looked.
Yeah. Probably.
It was great.
So
Watch that video. I don't know how many times.
just,
Not the whole video. Just that little part, like,
just that. I think that's like my opener, isn't it? As we jump in Seth's
Yeah.
face, so you have to watch the beginning of it. So I now have a Pioneer 500 and I have the Pioneer 1005. Well, about a year after having bought the 1005, Yamaha introduced the Yamaha Wolverine X4 850
Demo ride. That's where the demo ride.
demo ride.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I gotta brag on myself about this because I think I was the first YouTube channel to cover and review the Wolverine X4.
Yep, we
I'm
did
pretty
that.
sure I was the very first channel that had any videos and review
think
of the X4 on there. But we went to the demo ride. I drove one, which was probably a big mistake because I realized how much nicer of a machine it was over the Pioneer 1005.
I don't
Better
know.
for our family too. That was a big.
It was quieter, it was cooler, it was so much more refined.
Did it have as much power as that Pioneer though? or
Yes.
not? It did.
Yes, it did.
I thought we determined that the Pioneer had a little edge over it in power.
I think the Pioneer had a little lower end torque, I think because of being gear on gear.
Yeah, I was just saying.
The Pioneer 1000 is rated for 64, 65 horsepower.
Oh, wow.
And it's heavy. The 850 Wolverine's rated for 69.
Yeah.
It's a little bit lighter, although I may be mistaken on that. They may be pretty close to the same weight. They're both right around 1,600 pounds. But the Wolverine did have a little bit of edge on power. And I think the only way the 1000 beat it was maybe that off the gun jump. But the transmission on the 1000s was so herky-jerky, especially for slow riding. It was pretty bad. And the Wolverine X4s, the 850 Wolverines, are just so smooth and refined. Now, ride-wise, it's a crapshoot because I put the Walker Evans on the 1000. I put the Walker Evans on the Wolverine. And they both rode great with the Walker Evans.
Yeah.
Stock for stock, I would say maybe the 1005 had a slight advantage over the 850 Wolverine, but I mean it would be close. I'd have to ride in them side by side. It's hard to.
I think the ride quality of the 1005 was better, but the jumping quality, the high paced speed shock absorber on the 850, right? 850
Yeah.
Wolverine was better than the 1005.
Both the Pioneer 1000 and the Wolverines had the self leveling shocks in the rear, so that could make the rear end kind of hop over jumps. I don't know if you guys remember how hard it could be, but once you put the Walker Evans on, it was pretty much.
I mean, you had the stock shocks on the Pioneer 1000 for a little bit, but on the Wolverine, they weren't on there very long at all.
No.
So to remember much of that one, I mean, I think you even had it a month before it had shocks.
Well,
on
yeah,
it.
because if you remember, I realized that the shocks from the Pioneer 1000 fit and bolted right onto the X4.
Yeah, 'cause we were talking about that. We were looking at it, and we're like, "Bet you this will fit."
And
A week later, you're like, "They fit."
I swapped them on. Got a hold of contacts at Walker Evans and said, hey, these fit right on. And worked with them to get rears made. And it's like I didn't have the 850 Wolverine very long before they had Walker Evans. Very first Wolverine 850 to have Walker Evans shocks. And I helped develop them. So
There's a
that's
couple
pretty cool.
firsts. Yeah, there's a couple firsts with that machine.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't even looking into putting shocks on one of those yet until you called them and said,
Mhm.
"Hey, these fit," and they're like, "Oh."
Mm-hmm. And I think they sold pretty well. But like I said, going on that demo ride and riding in the 850 Wolverine X4 was kind of the downfall of the Pioneer 1005, because when the Wolverine was released, I was like, yeah, if this would have been out at the time I bought the 1000, I probably would have bought the Yamaha. And after riding it, I was like, yeah, I would have bought the Yamaha. So, of course, we sold the Pioneer 1005 and had the 850 X4.
That's the day I fell in love with the turbo.
Turbo.
What? Oh, yes, the demo ride. He.
That's
First
right. The
year,
Razor.
168 horsepower.
Yeah.
Also, the only year they had dynamic suspension in the 64-inch machine for half a year before they discontinued it.
Was that in the demo one you rode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so nice.
It rode like a Cadillac. Meanwhile, we're jumping it. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Well, I know them rocks that you were roosting up in the back of the vehicles behind you that probably stung like bees.
They had windshields. They had got over it.
Boy, was you getting the glare from the ride leader that day.
Oh my Lord! Steph's like, you think this thing can do a burnout? We'll find out.
It
Yeah,
did do a
that
burnout.
didn't go over so well. The dude was not happy. Good thing you didn't see us launched across the ski pad.
Do you guys remember what time of year that was? Miller's
It was right after winter.
has that every year. We're gonna have to go to the next one they have.
I wanna go
Just for
again.
fun, just for machines.
Yeah, as long as I'm not.
I'd like to drive.
Yeah.
I had to.
You weren't old enough
I was not
to
quite old.
drive.
He was
You
like,
had to be 18,
No.
weren't you?
I think you
Driver's
had to have
license.
a driver license.
I thought you still had to be 18.
I had my
Maybe
permit.
you're right.
I wasn't.
I think I had my permit.
No, I think you're right. You had to be at least 16 to have your driver's license.
He was like a couple of days off from getting his license.
I wasn't far off, so it was
Yeah.
definitely in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
850
Wolverine,
Wolverine
yeah.
X4.
A lot of good memories, a lot of good YouTube channel growth with that machine. That was a good machine, which I would probably still be rocking today.
If you didn't.
Get talked into going through.
Through an icy mud hole, which knocked the drain plug off the bottom and caused me to suck water into the motor, which didn't hydrolock it, but shut it off and caused some damage that I had to clean up. And then I would have never ever trusted it again after that. So once I got to put it back together, I got a good offer on trading it in on an RMAX 1000 for it, and so I traded it on the RMAX 1004. I still have today. Got a lot of performance stuff coming for that, and I really love the machine, and I don't regret it whatsoever.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
You forgot one machine. One very important machine.
What machine was that?
It's a Honda.
You did.
I can't believe you forgot it.
Zippy?
Yeah.
You did forget Zippy.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Maybe I was just going to talk about it later, Dan.
Now you can't go in order. That's the whole point
Yeah,
of
come
this.
on.
But I don't remember exactly what point I had got Zippy, though.
Actually, you missed two.
Was that Adam's
The
quad?
Warrior.
I'm getting to those.
You're
You
behind.
guys are just throwing me
Whoa.
all off. What?
I mean, he had the Warrior after. Right? You had
No,
that after you blew up.
Just let me finish. Just let me finish it.
We're
Jeez.
ruining it.
Boy, you just screwed. That's it. You threw off my whole story. There's a podcast over.
I mean,
No,
you kind of spit it out.
But let me talk about the RMAX here. I'm not going to say much
No.
about the RMAX because it's still the new kid on the block, basically. We've had it a year, and I don't regret it whatsoever. I was perfectly fine with the 850 Wolverine. I had put performance sheave in it. I had it tuned. We had Walker Evans shock, and that woke that beast up pretty good. You guys, I don't think you didn't get to experience it with the tune at all because I did that during winter, and it was that winter that I drowned it.
You put the
So-
tune on, and it was like not even 3 or 4 weeks before you had swamped it.
I didn't even get to make a video of it.
Uh-uh.
I had videos planned, performance testing, and I didn't even get to do that.
When we were
It got really cold though, and I think it snowed. And then the first clear day we had is whenever you took it for that ride with Josh and Sarah.
Yeah, we did some. I tested the 500 turbo. That was shortly after I got the turbo working on the Pioneer 500,
Yeah.
and I rode a little bit, and then hopped in the Wolverine to go down the railroad tracks by the creek, and then it drowned, and that's all I have to say about that. But now we have the RMAX.
It's a blast.
It's a blast. I will say that the 850 was a little more nimble and fun. The 850 Wolverine with the Walker Evans shocks rides nicer than the stock RMAX on the Fox shocks. Stock for stock, the RMAX rides nicer, but I still think the 850 rode nicer on the Walker Evans than what the RMAX does now.
If they had the power plant out of the RMAX in the 850, then it
Oh,
would have
my.
been one heck of a machine. It would
Yes,
just been.
absolutely.
I think it'd be the all-around machine.
But it
It'd
could.
have overpowered that.
I was
thing.
gonna say it would have also been probably Tip City, and you
Yeah.
would have seen a lot of them rolled.
Cool.
You say that now. People are just
Yeah.
idiots. So
That's true too. So that's where we're at as far as side-by-sides. We still have the RMAX. We're still rocking Mighty Mouse. That's now the world's first and still the world's only turbocharged Pioneer 500 that I know of. There's been a supercharged one, but that's kind of... I haven't heard anything about them guys that was working on the supercharger kit for a long time.
They must have got bored with it, put it on the back burner.
I don't think things worked well.
They tried to go way too
Yeah,
big,
I mean,
way
they were
too
building the motor and everything for that. So they were dumping a pile of money in it. But I still have the distinct honor of owning the world's only turbocharged Pioneer 500. And as these guys mentioned, I did have a couple other machines in about that. I can't remember, though, when exactly they came into be. But as Dan had mentioned, I did have, or come into the possession of Zippy, which is an 86 Honda Fortrex 200 SX. Whew, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
That was like the Cherry Corner bike. That was a hand-me-down quad throughout my family. My cousins had it. You know, the same cousins that had the blasters that I was jealous of? Yeah, that was theirs. Which got handed down to my younger cousin, which she rode it for a long time. She went on rides with us maybe a time or two, Brittany? Maybe not with us, but I rode with her and her and Matt, her husband Matt, a couple times. That was them I went with the night ride on that time I was talking about with all the sport quads.
Yeah.
And then from my cousin Brittany, my uncle gave it to my brother, who rode it around a little bit, but then it sat just outside in the weather for...
He rode your go-kart more than he rode that.
I think so. Well, he rode the go-kart around for a while, and I think that's why my uncle gave him the Honda, is because my brother's a big guy, and he's a big kid. Not fat, I mean, he's tall, broad. And I think just him on that go-kart was just kind of funny.
Go-karts are fun. I used to have one.
So then he got that Honda. It sat outside for probably at least 5 years or more, just out in the elements. And though I remember the one day, it was after I started my channel, I was like, Adam, you doing anything with the four-wheeler? He's like, I ain't doing anything with it. I said, good, I'm going to take it and fix it up. He's like, fine. So I brought it up here, threw a little oil in it, a couple pulls, she fired right up after sitting outside for years.
That's a Honda.
That's a Honda.
At least the old
Doug
Hondas.
was the first one to ride it on a ride.
Doug, yep.
He jumped it off of, I believe I
Can Fly jump. Yep, there's footage of that on the channel of him jumping Zippy before I had done anything to it.
When you had the Grizzly still.
I still had the 700
Rhino,
Grizzly.
Because I broke my collarbone on the dirt bike that I totaled.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Jesse had his Rhino.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's been around for a while.
It's been around for a while. Of course, I did almost a complete restoration of that. New frame, built the motor. I just can't bring myself to buy new plastics for it, as expensive as they are.
Doesn't matter.
I would have... Get to that. Oh. I would have more money in new plastics than what the value of that's worth. So, I mean...
I think honestly, the way it looks fits it.
It looks kind of...
It's rustic.
like Mad Max Frankenstein right now, but to ride around's not fun because you just get pelted so much with mud.
I think it's kind of funny personally,
but
it hurts.
There's gonna be new life. We do have plans to do something with the motor out of that. We're gonna be putting it in the kids' Razor 170. So,
what are you looking at me for? I didn't spill beans. I just said not for long. It could have
meant for long.
It could have meant he put new plastics on it, or it could have meant.
I just can't bring myself to buy new plastic. So we're gonna take the power plant, the motor out of that Honda. It's 186 cc of Fury, Honda Fury in power. And since the kids' Razor 170's transmission is junk and it's gonna take about $700 or more to fix it for like a little shaft and a couple little gears, which that's to me is just ridiculous. I have a perfect good running motor in Zippy. We're gonna take Zippy's motor. We're gonna put it in the kids' Razor 170. So they're going to have more power, be able to bang through gears, learn how to do that at a young age.
Awesome.
And I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a pretty good build series. Hopefully it's not too difficult to do. It shouldn't be. Wiring stuff to work with the factory ignition switch and the lights is probably going to be the hardest, but...
I hate to see Zippy go. I had a thought.
But whoever said Zippy was going anywhere? We are only taking the power plant
just
out of Zippy...
It's true.
Zippy still has a lot of other new parts on him, like 4 new tires, new shocks, new handlebars, new handlebar controls.
Wait. Did it have new shocks on it when I did the course drive with it, or was that after?
The front, I'm sorry, the front are newer shocks. The rear is still just old and blown out, and yeah.
Not good for a 200-pound person. What are you putting in it for?
I don't know yet, but we'll do something. We're gonna do something.
We should do like a Harbor Freight engine build.
I was thinking about that actually.
Because I wonder, a goat, like a 212 Predator or something like that, I think would handle its own in that 4-wheeler.
I'm thinking more like a 420.
Well, you know what I mean, though. I think they'd handle their own.
Mm-hmm.
They're
I was
cheap.
thinking 2-stroke 250.
Ooh.
It's not a bad idea. We could put that
Two-stroke
blaster
50?
motor that your cousin
No,
said.
no. I'm thinking like KTM 250 2-stroke.
Trick would be finding one
For
Yeah,
cheap.
for a decent price.
That part, yes, it would be hard, but that would be a sweet build.
That thing would rip. No one would expect it
Mm-hmm.
like at all. It would look like the old Yamaha Breezes. I think they were 2-strokes. It's kind
Yeah.
of similar to that.
Yeah.
People would be like, oh, it's just an old bike. They come 2-strokes back then.
I mean, I could probably fab up some little like, almost like buggy fenders over the front tires that kind of turn with tires. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Bombardier
Bombardier.
650 or
Yep.
650s.
But I guess what it comes down to right now is my wife and I don't want to spend $700 to fix up Polaris junk. So we're gonna put Zippy's motor into the Razor 170. Sorry, Dan. I'm sorry. I gotta get my jabs in when I can.
It's a Razor 170. I mean,
It is a Razor 170, and the power plant's Chinese. It's either High Sun or one of those off-brand Chinese brands.
they didn't even build them. Like I don't
No,
even
they
think they
didn't.
built the frames
It's
that much.
a Yamaha GY6 or G6 whatever clone motor from China is what it is.
Yeah.
It's in those things. So.
Because those off-brand Razors, I'm pretty sure, were the ones that built those. Because they had those 170 Razors that you, or not Razors, but you know what I mean, the Harbor Freight ones or whatever it was that you could buy.
Mhm.
They're identical. Like,
Yeah.
most everything's bolt on identical.
Yep. So that's the majority of machines. Now I did have a couple snowmobiles in between there, which will lead up to my last machines. I had an '86 Arctic Cat Lynx, bought for $200. Pretty good running condition. I had to do a little bit of carb work and stuff to it. Took an old street sign and patched the belly pan because it was all rusted out. But for an old leaf banger sled, that thing was pretty peppy and fun in the snow.
You could do a wheelie on it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And I had that, and that kind of got me hooked into snowmobiles for a very short period of time. And then I bought the, it was, I can't remember the size of it, the Lynx.
700?
No, it wasn't that big. It was like a 650 or a 550 or a 540 Lynx. Or
The Arctic Cat.
the Arctic Cat, yeah.
The new one.
A little bit newer one, a little bit more power, had reverse.
It was a triple cylinder, I think, wasn't it?
No, I think it was just a dual.
The dual.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't a triple. Put a little bit of work into that. And here in PA, our winters aren't like they used to be. We don't get a lot of snow, so I didn't actually get to use the snowmobiles a whole lot. So basically, I had enough of them. I put them on, I can't remember if I put them on Facebook Marketplace. Basically for sale or trade. I had a guy contact me saying, hey, I'll trade you both of those snowmobiles for a Yamaha Warrior. I said, sure. Sounds good to me. I use a four-wheeler a lot more than I would the snowmobiles. So we did a trade, and I'm going to warn you guys right now, if you're ever going to trade a buggy for a buggy, don't look at the buggy you're going to trade for in the dark, during your work, when you're in a hurry, because you're probably not going to get what you initially think you're getting.
Yeah, been there, done that.
So they traded the snowmobiles for the Warrior, thinking I'd get to drive the Warrior much. I've had the Warrior for, 4 years now? It's at least 3. It's been at least 3 years.
Yeah, it's
It
time
might be
flying,
4.
'cause you had it for about half a year before I bought the 400.
And I've hardly ever got to ride that
I
thing.
think I've seen that Warrior sit under the porch for almost its entire life.
It has been one thing after another. The more I dug into it, the more I saw was wrong. Basically, what I think happened is the guy saw I was willing to trade. He had this Warrior in pieces, and he just slapped her together as quickly as he could to get it running long enough to make the trade. And that's what happened. So I maybe got suckered a little bit on that buggy. But finally, as of last week, I got her running the best she's ever ran. And it rips. I'm pleasantly surprised.
I remember after you put it together the first time, you're running through the field and it's like half throttle and it just started popping and banging, shooting black smoke everywhere. It was like, holy cow.
So that pretty much has me up to date. I still have Mighty Mouse, the Pioneer 500. I have the RMAX 1000. I have Zippy. I have the Warrior. And, of course, the Big Bear 400. I don't know if I can technically call that mine because my father-in-law bought it and told me might as well put the title in my name, so he kind of gave it to me. But technically it's mine, but it's his because he paid for it. But I run it. I'm the only one that pretty much runs it. So I got quite a few machines. Plus the kids' Razor 170 and Alana's Mongoose. But that's pretty much the next generation buggy, and we're just talking about our buggy. So that brings me up to date. So.
You said about go-karts. I forgot I had a go-kart. It's one of the best trades I've ever had in my life. It was one like your Dinko, but it was the 2-seat version, and they were not as long and didn't have the big wheels. They had the small like long cart style wheels on them, and it was a one-tire fire. I'm pretty sure it was whenever they had those ones going.
Okay, it was only one-wheel drive basically.
I had a brick strapped to the front of it to put weight on the wheels for it to turn because I was so heavy for it. The seat was in the back, the engine was in the back.
Even my Dingo, if you get it going fast and turn the wheel, it takes like 2 seconds before it finally catches and turns. So you got to plan ahead.
I actually forgot about one vehicle. I hand built a go-kart like 10 years ago.
Wow.
Let me see if I can find a picture.
Ooh, yeah, find a picture. Find a picture.
While he's doing that, the go-kart almost killed my brother, and almost killed me. It was a 2-seater one, but when you're big and an adult, it's more like a single-seater. But you can still fit 2 adults uncomfortably. And I went to my brother and he said, "You want to go for a rip?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Come on, let's go. Roads are ice, so we can have some fun." And he goes, "No." It's like, whatever. Never met a bigger sissy in my life. Gets in the buggy. Go up the road, up the road, up the road, and then took another road. And went around. He goes, "This isn't too bad." I was like, "Yeah." So you want to try to do 360? And he was like, "No." So we come down off the hill by the Starlight, turned into our lane. It was a solid sheet of ice, and I just booking it down the lane. No brakes on this thing whatsoever. I had a handbrake off of a pedal bike on the steering wheel is what I used for my throttle. Again, no brakes. At the end of my lane, there's nothing but 2x4 post across on white post. And he was like, "Does it really 360?" I was like, "Yes, I get like 2 or 3 out of it before I can get it straight again. Go." He's like, "I don't believe you." So I whipped the wheel. The thing spun. I didn't do it with 2 people in it. It was the first time I ever did it with 2 people in it. And it hit the snowbank and sucked it right into the snow and stopped right beside the telephone pole. He was like half an inch from hitting the telephone pole with his shoulders. And he looked at me and he goes, "No." He goes, "Never again." A couple days later, snowstorm hit, roads covered in ice again. I'm sitting there riding around. He was like, "I'll ride with you." So we come flying down the road again.
Don't have it.
And at the end of our lane was a telephone post that the borough or whatever had put in the ground years ago to block the road and then divide the road from our yard. And Dad had kids riding pedal bikes, dirt bikes, 4-wheelers through the post and in through the yard. So he put a 4x4 across the top of them. Well, the far left had a hole big enough that the top of the go-kart could fit through it. So me and my brother were just ripping down through the road. This was Doug, so if you can only imagine how well this went with Doug, he was full panic mode. I looked at him, I said, "I think we can fit." Well, I went to go turn to fit, and it wouldn't turn. We were heading straight for the 2x4 and the post. And he's looking at me, he goes, "It's not turning." I go, "We're not turning." He's like, "We're not turning." All of a sudden, it hooks and turns at the very last minute and slides right through the post and missed him by like half an inch. And he goes, "That's it, I'm done." He jumps out of the buggy. I don't think he rode with me in my car or anything after that for probably like a year. Like he never rode in anything with me. He's like, "I'm done with you." Walks inside, Mom comes out, it's like, "I don't know what you did," but he is so mad. I was like, "Yeah, I would be too after that." It was terrible, but that fun buggy. I mean, that's the stupid things. I mean, it cost me like nothing. I paid $50 for a dirt bike I traded for it. It was like that I didn't mention either because it wasn't worth it. But
so you didn't have any pictures of it on there?
I did. It was a pretty nice build too. I wish I had those on there. Must have been on my old phone.
Homemade stuff is the best.
And speaking of homemade builds, I do have another go-kart frame out there.
I was waiting for this.
Sitting out there. It's a Baja go-kart, full suspension. It's pretty good size. I also happen to have in my possession in the corner of my garage a 135 horsepower Suzuki GS 1000 motor, just sitting there patiently waiting to go into something. And I'm thinking
You're gonna die.
I'm gonna die because my plan is to put that 1,000cc motor in that little dinky tiny go-kart frame. What do you guys think?
I'm so excited. I'm so
It's gonna go nowhere anytime fast, but it's gonna spin.
It's
wheels
gonna
everywhere.
it's gonna be a drift monster. That's gonna be a drift.
I'm hoping.
I'm thinking we should actually engineer a frame for it.
We can do that in stage 2. Stage 1, we gotta see if this motor runs.
Yeah.
Before we do
You
anything.
have to
So
have a
stage
test frame
1,
for it.
we gotta have a tester machine. We'll put this in, see if it runs. Then stage 2, we can go like an actual frame to handle it.
We could probably get like 95 out of top of the field with that thing if we get it.
Probably.
Or maybe even faster, maybe.
I'm probably going to actually extend the rear. It has sort of like a weird trailing arm / A-arm thing suspension on the rear.
Yeah, they are set up weird.
It's
just
weird.
Like a solid thing.
Yeah, I'm probably going to extend those a little bit and actually maybe use some of my Walker Evans shocks I have down there.
That's what I do.
So
It's a
what's
heavy
your,
engine.
That's coming here in the future.
what's your best memory from power sports industry?
Perfect segue. That was going to be
Mine.
my finisher up there, Greg. Perfect.
Mine. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you got to
Okay,
start it. Go
okay,
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead. You've been pretty quiet for this whole conversation. So.
Oh yeah.
He's been saving this.
Let's go.
In 2000, my buddies and I, we all 4 of us worked at a restaurant, and so we were all dirt poor. Okay, I waited tables, and my one buddy worked in a dish room, and the other 2 were cooks. So we were all poor, but we took 2 vehicles in our Yamaha. My 2 buddies that were from Indiana, PA. They each had a Yamaha Blaster, and we both had, my buddy and I had Yamaha Banshees, and we took them in trucks and went across the country. We had 11 days of vacation. We drove over 8,000 miles.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
we drove we drove nonstop. We drove nonstop from Indiana, PA to Coos Bay, Oregon, nonstop on the way out. And when we got there, we like unloaded our stuff and went riding.
Wow.
But we were on the road about 52 hours on the way out. We would stop to grab snack food and go to the bathroom and fuel, and we were back on
Just
the road.
rotate drivers and
Oh,
keep going.
We were lucky. We were lucky we weren't killed. Like it was just an absolutely insane trip. But man, it was so much fun. I still remember I calculated the gas for every to get out there and back, and like I was within like $300 or $400
Mhm.
like whenever we it was all said and done. But I remember we booked a cabin out there at a KOA campground in Coos Bay, Oregon, and we could ride directly from the dune or directly from the cabin, like right out on the dunes, and it cost us $60 a night total. So $60 split 4 ways.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy cheap. Like I'll bet we each had like total into vacation maybe I don't know, probably $300 or $400, and it was like one of the best vacations.
That was
I've
the vacation.
Oh man,
driving that far.
it was a week of riding in the sand dunes out there.
Wow.
My one buddy actually seized his he had a piped and tuned and ported blaster, and they actually jetted him wrong. Like before we went out there, the company gave him jetting advice, and the jetting was actually wrong because it was at sea level out there.
Yeah.
He seized it up, and we took it to a shop in town, and they honed it right on the spot, and we rebuilt his
nice.
blaster right there.
Wow.
Like we got. It was so much fun.
I don't know. That's still not as good as a Gatorade cap in your diff to keep you riding. But hey, I mean that was.
Yeah, but we were lucky. That shop, it was a full service shop, man. They honed it right on the spot, gave us a new piston, and
That's crazy.
and the blaster's air cold, so I mean it was so simple to just throw back together, and I mean there's no timing or anything, and you just throw a piston on it and rings and you go.
Tighten the cylinder down here.
Yeah. Didn't have a torque wrench, so of course we
Just
just
use a torque wrench.
yeah, it was close enough.
A couple Ugga and call her good, huh?
We were
CR.
on the
It
way
was
out
never
there.
torqued. That thing was put together in hand. It's like, yeah, we're good.
On the way out there, we thought it was terrible when we were paying like $1. We thought it was terrible when we were paying $1.40 for gas. And we out west, I don't remember the state, but we were in a state where the gas was like about $1.40, so we decided to skip and get 86 octane. And I thought my vehicle was breaking down. I thought we were gonna be stranded like 2,500 miles from home, and here it was just a gas. It was just pinging so bad.
Wow.
It was gas. We had to run that gas out and fill up with higher octane and that got rid of it. But man, we're just so lucky we didn't have any breakdowns. My buddy did get a flat tire on the way out, but we changed that. I was in Wyoming on the way out. We were so tired. We were so tired on the way out there that we were hallucinating. We're like,
It's like, wow, this is a nice 4-lane highway. Everybody looks over. This is only 2-lane. What are you talking about?
All right, flat tire to drive.
oh man, that was so much fun though.
That's
That's a cool story.
AMR needs to have a trip like that.
I agree 100%.
Flat
Yeah.
tires.
I still remember
Flat
my
tire.
dad before we left. He said you should really enjoy this trip because you'll never get to do anything like this again. I'm like, oh great.
Yo,
The rest of my life is gonna be terrible.
yeah. We'll have to make something like this happen.
That sounds awesome.
Load up machines.
That was,
west.
I would do it again in a second. I mean, I would do it if you guys are up for it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
But yeah, I had a
Just do
I had that.
Let me celebrate.
I had that Nissan. Remember me talking about that Nissan truck that would always spit and sputter?
Yeah, when it rained.
That's what I took out there.
Oof.
I had in the back of my buddy's truck. We had my buddy's Banshee, and then I had a trailer that my dad and I got from Harbor Freight. It was like $300. It was a kit, so we had to wire it and everything. And then we took the tires off the two blast or the one Banshee and the blaster, and we just bolted the frames right to the trailer, which I'm glad we did because we got in some bad situations like with moving through traffic and stuff. But then we took the shocks off the mounts off one of the blasters and slid it right in the cab of my truck. I mean, it just barely cleared.
Oh my!
And we had my truck so packed full of stuff, like it was crazy. But it was so much fun and so memorable, and it was so cheap too. Like it was just so much fun.
It sounds like the best vacation ever for the money.
Yeah, I mean it was literally like $400. Now it would be like 10 grand.
Oh my,
yeah.
just in gas alone to get out there.
I'd be curious to call that KOA camp. It's the KOA campground in Coos Bay, Oregon. I'd be curious to call them and just see what their rates are now.
Yeah.
It's probably not that much more.
Just KOA camps probably.
Yeah,
not.
it's probably not that much.
Yeah.
But the
KOAs are
cabin,
pretty cheap.
was just did it have heat? I think it had heat in it, but it didn't have a bathroom. It had a shower house and stuff there. It was awesome.
You're out there to
I
ride
mean-
all day. You don't need a bunch of fancy amenities.
I mean, of course we didn't go to Silver Lake Sand Dunes in Michigan. We had to go clear to Coos Bay.
yeah, I mean,
Oregon.
it would be closer. I mean, it kind of make more sense.
It would make
Yeah.
more sense. But I mean, you could go. We were in some places where you couldn't see anything but sand. Like it
Yeah.
was- yeah.
I'd be up for a trip to Silver Lake.
Oh, definitely
Yeah.
Silver Lake.
I've never rode dunes.
I need a machine
experience.
that'll. I mean, that 700 double X would be fine. That's what we took up there in
Mhm.
2010 was the 700 double X's. But yeah, I'd want to take something up there like that. I wouldn't want to take the Rhino up there.
Yeah.
I'd like to try the 450 in the dunes.
Yeah,
I think
dude.
that'd be awesome.
The dirt bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my friends that went along with us, he had a street trail Honda something, and he was crashing it every 2 minutes. And he was a pretty good rider too. I mean,
Oh, okay.
sand is just so different to ride in. Every time he'd try and cut the front wheel, I mean, I don't know anything about riding. He'd cut the front wheel and wash out and go over the bars, and
I did that the
Is-
other day.
That's the story I was
Yeah.
waiting for.
I don't know why I didn't know why we didn't plan that trip to Silver Lake. But I mean, the trip to if you've never gone 8,000 miles in like 6 days, like it's brutal, man. But
I can only imagine. That's
on
crazy.
paper, it looks so awesome.
Yeah.
But man, it was a bear, man. It was tough.
Seth, a favorite riding story or worst crash story? Something to end us out here.
Ooh, I don't know what. It's so hard to say what my
All right,
favorite.
there's a
Because I've
lot.
had so many fun rides. To be honest, actually, this was a really fun ride. Was on the 450, and it's a pretty interesting one. So it was Dan, me. He had what bike did you have then?
The YZ.
The YZ
Remember I
450.
ate it on that hill.
Yes, you did. So several times we did hill climbs, and of course me and Dan had bald tires like always, on the 450.
They're
Riding
fun.
with guys that had brand new tires, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's go do these hill climbs," and they're ripping up them. And I like them. I'm not doing it. I have a bald tire. I don't have enough experience. And of course, Dan, exact opposite. I got this, guys. Don't worry, watch this. Made it maybe 5 feet up the hill and completely
Skip. I mean, go ahead.
So anyways, that was pretty funny. That was a really fun ride. I got to laugh at Dan a lot. I laughed at myself a lot. But coming back through, we were actually headed back into town in Mahaffey there, coming back home. And going about, I think it was 3rd or 4th gear. I can't remember. We were going pretty good speed. I'd say probably like...
we were moving.
Through the trail there, it was probably like 40, maybe even 50. I don't know if we were going quite 50. Probably closer to 40.
It was like a gas wall road, so it was pretty open.
Yeah, so we were flying, and I trying to crack up through a wheelie, absorb the bumps, and my rear hub shattered.
Oh yeah,
mid
shattered.
wheelie, it
Just
shattered.
completely.
The hub just split in several pieces, and of course it flung the chain into the
hub or the
I don't know
wheel?
where- the hub.
That goes on the axle. It shattered. The
I mean,
sprocket
Is
ripped
that,
off.
is that a
of it.
cast piece?
You have the hub. I believe that's all aluminum.
I thought it was billet.
It's all
machine.
aluminum. I think that's all aluminum.
Rogue.
But
Wow.
the hub, then you got the spokes with the wheel, with the rim, and so that shattered. The spokes went everywhere. Chain got caught up somewhere near the front sprocket, locked it up. So mid wheelie, about 40, 45 mile an hour, whatever, locks up. And actually, it didn't wreck it. Rode it out pretty smooth.
Probably slammed your front
I
end down
thought,
pretty
what
hard.
in the world just happened here? Looking at it, I observed my sprocket, the bolts that hold the sprocket on, wore out. They came loose, so they wore holes in it, which weakened it. So there was a little bit of gap there, and they shattered, and that's where it just exploded from there. So that's how that happened. But anyways, after that, the bike of course broke down, can't do anything. Dan's like, okay, I'll go back and get my truck. So he goes back, gets his truck, and did I ride back with you on that? I don't know. I didn't. I waited. I'm thinking, man, what's taking him so
Yeah,
long?
they're sitting there.
I'm like, there's no way that we're just up the road from where his truck was. Here,
This
he
was
got a
before it
flat
was loud.
tire coming up the hill right before my dirt bike.
It's like 200 yards away.
Yep, got a flat tire. So we got that. Some guy, we rode to his house, got some tools to fix it because we didn't have anything.
One of my old bosses.
Yep, so that was kind of interesting. He came out, we fixed the tire, we finally got that all put on, put the dirt bike in it, headed back. Right before we're going to drop the tools off to that guy, man, what's wrong with the truck? Another flat tire. So my hub blew out. We had 2 flat tires on the truck. And eventually, I think that's when we call it quits. I don't know if we had anything else happen after that.
Beat butt down to the hardware store to put a plug in the tire so it didn't go completely flat on us.
And I think that's how we got home finally. So it was an awesome day riding. Got to learn a lot. That was probably my most trail ridden ride with the 450. So that was a really big experience for me. Had a lot of hill climbs, a lot of fun on it. Also, sadly broke my bike. That was several $100s later. But that was a good memory for me.
When you think you're good at riding something, but then you ride with people that ride in a completely different style platform that you ride a dirt bike, it makes you realize, like, holy cow, like, we're going through some of these trails, I mean, they're trails your side-by-side won't fit on. 55, 60 mile an hour. They're standing up. Me and Seth are sitting back there trying to keep up. We're ripping through the woods. We're sitting down on the bikes. We don't stand up to ride bikes. We sit to ride bikes,
No, that's just how we've always did it.
They stand up and ride their bikes, and they're just ripping through the woods like do-do-do-do-do-do. They always had to stop and wait on us. We're just like, they're like, just try standing up. Just try standing up. You'll like it way more. So we started standing up, and I was like, wow. So they taught us some stuff through that trail.
Oh, definitely.
But right whenever he blew his hub out, the kid in front of him got hit with a rock, so he stopped. So he's like, oh, blow past him with a wheelie. So he blew past him with a wheelie. Something was going on with that. I just blew past them all, and I was like, And then, it was, what a heck of a day that was. It's probably one of my favorite stories, too. I mean, so many things went wrong, but yet it was...
We enjoyed every second of it. My hub blew out, like, oh, there's several $100s, but that was awesome. And Dan's blowing out tires, we're dying laughing. It was
I had a hole the size of my phone.
It was
a
huge.
piece of rock. Somehow, it's a gas wall road. and it picks a rock up out of everything the size of my phone and shoves it right through the tire. No one knew how it happened. You couldn't even pull the rock out. Like, it just stuck it right in the tire. We're sitting there trying to pull it out, and it's stuck in the tire. We're just like, I ain't coming out. I had to physically take the tire off the rim to get the rock out of the tire. It was so stuck. Never seen anything like it. But what a heck of a day.
It was a good day.
But since he already told that story, and if your turn, I don't know.
No, go ahead, Dan. You got a story. Go for it.
So, since he already told the good story, my favorite story is probably on his 250 4-wheeler. We ride together a lot. I mean, if we have something, we're riding together with it. It's usually just the way it is. And he had a 250. He's like, hey, want to go for a rip? We were shooting guns too, I think, that day. So we shot guns.
Yeah.
It was 20 degrees out, a foot and a half of snow. We used to
Too much snow for my 4-wheeler, but with Dan on the back of the 4-wheeler, it seemed like a good traction. So,
Why
yeah.
not?
So we did some shooting. Went and got targets, brought targets back up. He said, you want to go for a rip? It's like, sure, let's go for a rip. So, his house is a big valley with some, gas well hills and gas well 4-wheeler trails and whatever else. We're going up this 4-wheeler trail. And he's like, I think we can make it. And I was like, yeah, we're doing so good. So good. A grapevine comes out of nowhere. The 4-wheeler comes up, gets stuck in the grapevine. A grapevine's holding a 4-wheeler. Me and Seth are laying on top of each other on the ground, just sitting there looking at each other like, what just happened? 4-wheeler's sitting there in the grapevine, just like moving. We're like,
It kind of reminded me of a movie where somebody's like walking and one of those foot traps catches their leg and flings them up in the tree. That's what happened to my 4-wheeler.
It just
we're
got
both laying there like, what just happened? Like,
we were doing
that's hilarious.
so good up this hill, and it just goes, and we're on the ground. We're just like, Seth's like, well, it wasn't too bad. I was like, yeah, you're not the one on the bottom of the pile here. And he's like, yeah, you're right. I mean, that thing was so much fun. But, well, at least we didn't roll it that time.
That 4-wheeler, yeah, we did a lot on that. Actually, I mean, it's obviously a one-person 4-wheeler, but me and Dan did a lot on it, both of us together. On it. That's also where I rolled it very violently down the hill. That was with Dan as well.
So
there's no trend. There's no trend.
I was making up a connection here. What Seth was saying that most of the wreck he's been involved in was when Dan was with him riding on the same machine you were on.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's just Dan.
In all fairness,
hey Dan,
I said when he tried that hill climb, don't do it. It's a bad idea. And I don't say that about a lot of stuff. And when I said it's a bad idea, and Seth's like, I can make it. And I'm just like,
would have too.
I'm just like, no, it's really muddy. I don't think you can. Don't do it. And he's like, I can make it.
Hey Dan, I didn't think of this till just now, but who was with me on the Hatfield McCoy trip in Mighty Mouse when the axle just grenaded and
Wait. Let's rewind this. Seth was with you.
who was in the buggy with me at that
No, that
time?
doesn't matter. He was.
Who
with
was
you.
in the buggy with me at that time? I'm starting to see a pretty
I-
good connection here between machines breaking down and you being involved or in the machine or on the machine.
I wasn't on the 4-wheeler when you rolled it down the hill, though.
It did touch you on the way down.
It hit me. What do you mean? Touch it threw me with it.
That's all right. That's why I'm okay with him riding the 700 XX. I just don't care.
You don't care?
Because I know what's gonna happen.
I don't know if I want Dan's riding with me on a ride tomorrow.
I've
Cars.
never
I don't know. I don't
crashed.
know if it's going to be on road too, Dan. If we crash on road, and
I've never crashed a friend's 4-wheeler or dirt bike.
Huh. That's not
I
wood.
think it's wood. There you go.
Okay, we're good.
So, I mean,
Well, I
there
don't.
is a connection, though, isn't there?
I don't really have any exciting crash stories because I'm just such a good rider. I probably never crashed.
It doesn't have to be a
I gotta
crash
say.
story. It could just be
I
a
might
good
hit
memory.
you.
Well, this is a good memory because it was what was involved after the crash, but it was with the Grizzly 660. I was riding by myself, so why I was wanting to showboat, I don't know, but I just had the urge to do donuts in the 660. And so I was riding, and forgive me for being, again, young and dumb. It wasn't even on somewhere flat. It was on a little bit of a hill. I thought, I'm going to do some donuts on my 660 Grizzly. And I wasn't a big fella at the time. The Grizzlies are big 4-wheelers. They're heavy. I was in my early 20s and in shape, maybe 150 pounds soaking wet at the time. And of course, I'm sitting there doing donuts. 1 loop good, 2 loops good, 3.5 loops. Oh, look, it decides to catch. And it flips and just throws me halfway down the dirt road. I actually still have a scar on my elbow from the road rash.
I love road rash.
Didn't hurt the grizzly. Besides this, it did bend the handlebars down. You know, no big deal. You grab them, just yank them back. However, it completely snapped off my thumb throttle.
Oh,
I
that's
am
interesting.
nowhere near home, and in order to get home, I have to ride some pretty gnarly terrain, or the back roads, you know, gas well roads, stripping cuts. Best way, probably not the best way to get home, but I didn't want to ride on the main road because my mommy would find out and probably yell at me at that point in my life.
I know what that's like, yeah.
Even though I'm in my 20s, I was still living at home and probably still would have got yelled at by my mommy. But anyway.
Are we going to tell any stories about ambulance chases?
No, don't ambulance chases this. But anyway, here I am with a broken throttle, and I'm a good 5 miles through the woods, through these back roads away from home. So I had to drive the whole way by taking 4 fingers, grabbing the little stub that the thumb lever used to be connected to under the machine, and try to have fine throttle control by using that the whole way home.
If you cut the audio on that, it would look like a prostate exam.
Well, we're gonna call that. I had to employ the prostate technique in order to find my way home, which wasn't a big deal. But guys, if you've ever tried to control a 4-wheeler throttle with your fingers underneath on a little stub that was probably less than 1/4 of an inch, while you're trying to maneuver through the woods, up hills, down hills.
How did that thumb throttle break?
I had one of those extensions on it that's supposed to be more comfortable, and I think that's what snapped it. Needless to say, I have never had my hand cramp so many times in like 3 hours. It was like one of those things where it was like 10 minutes to get where I was, and it took me like 3 hours to get home. My hand cramped up so bad, so many times. I almost wrecked it, I don't know how many other times, because I tried to turn and forget how I was, and if I turned the wrong way, of course, it would twist that, and it would be like, and try to steer me right into something. But that was probably my most adventurous and memorable adventure by myself anyway.
Hey, do you remember that time I jumped the waiter and I hit you down in the pond?
I do.
Yeah. So there is a reaction, Shane.
Because that was kind of my fault because I was going straight up and you couldn't see. That was the one that was down in the strippings below, right?
Yeah, it's the one where Seth almost hit Quentin.
I did hit Quentin.
You did hit Quentin, yeah. It wasn't a bad hit, but yeah, I was coming across there and all of a sudden I look and here comes Dan flying through the air. Right, you really clipped me, right? Was that with the 700 Grizzly?
I think so,
I think
because I
700 Grizzly.
barely got you. It was like a tire to tire.
But it was one of those where you just kind of stopped and looked and you're like just stuck in a stare. It's like, whew, that was close. I was like, that could have been bad real quick.
Yeah, Quentin had his YZ250 or YZ2 is for sure.
That is
250.
One and only time he rode with us.
Yeah,
I jumped the thing, and on the back side of the jump, there's Quentin sitting with his dirt bike, and
like,
boom!
Hello.
And that was like a brand new bike too.
He wasn't
I
sitting
was
on top
nervous.
of the hill. He was sitting off the back of the hill.
Well, see, that's the thing. You came up over the jump, and it actually kind of went down a little bit before it leveled off. So there was like a little dip there.
I hit you on the side coming in. He hit Seth, or Seth hit him on the side where you come off the big hill and you jump out.
Oh,
of the pond.
he was jumping. And that was just a straight downhill on that side.
Yeah, that is more downhill on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of close calls, but like no one got mad. Like they were everyone's.
no.
Things
We all
happen.
They
I
were
mean,
everyone's fault. So
Yeah.
it's like Tommy hit me with that 4-wheeler.
I have that on video.
Snow ride.
That is one of my favorite video clips.
He rolled it the same day too.
You're sitting there, and all of a sudden Tommy hits you, your arms fly up, and then you're just like,
I think that's my number 2 favorite
That-
video clip.
I think
because
so.
Number 1 is
Because
let it kick in. That's
that-
number 1.
that slow turn that he does to look at Tom. You can tell they're brothers, and it's just like, what are you doing?
He hit me hard enough. I landed on the front rack of his 4-wheeler.
Oh, it's like,
What are you doing? He's like, I thought you were still moving. I was like, I was, but Seth stopped.
And then it wasn't long after that he then was backing up and trying to turn. All of a sudden, oh look, there's a bank, and he rolls it. So that was a good time.
You missed the good stuff.
Yeah.
Now we're just kind of cautious.
Well, we're getting older, and I'm gonna say wiser at this point in our lives.
Well, definitely not wiser. I just can't afford to have fun.
A Banshee I had, one time I washed it, and I went to let it dry off, and I went to start it again. Kicked it, 1 star. Tried to pop start it because some of our property's on an incline, so I tried to pop start it down that. Tried 4 or 5 times, pushing it back up. The thing would not start, and I never had trouble with it not starting. So I decided to hook it up to my truck, and my dad towed me around the yard, and it's still, I'd pop the clutch in like 3rd gear, did that 3 or 4 times, still would not start. And I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do something to pull the motor out of this thing or something. Pulled the seat off, realized that I still didn't take the plastic bag out of the intake.
Oh, that you had there to keep water from going.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I don't think I even fouled the plugs. I think I pulled that out and it started right up. Yeah. That was the only mechanical problem I've ever had with that machine.
That's pretty cool.
Makes you wish you still had that now. The
Oh,
money
dude.
they go for, though, too.
Oh,
I think, shoo-wee.
5-6 grand.
Oh, I'd be hanging on to it. I wouldn't be selling it.
Did you buy that new?
Yeah. 98. We paid $5 grand for them in 98.
Wow.
And they're selling for 5-6 grand.
And then we bought Toomey T5 pipe, Toomey T6 pipes. T5 or T6 pipes.
I love the way they sound.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best two-stroke sounds.
It's a unique sound. It's pretty cool.
I would love to find a FL4 350 Pilot.
Oh yeah, 400 two-stroke. Yeah. Then we sent our motors to California, got them back, and man, wow, the explosive power with those. Wow.
Well, it's crazy that engine come out of a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And they had so much backing already, so when they put them in a quad, there was so much buildability to them to make them stupid fast. But I can't remember what they did in the motorcycle. They were pretty fast, if I remember correctly.
We had right around 60 rear wheel horsepower with those.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It came on like a switch too, man.
You see what some of the new builds are doing with those now? There's a guy on YouTube who's got one right around 100 horsepower.
Oh yeah, you could have. Yeah, they'd use like snowmobile jugs and stuff and run alcohol.
They don't last long though.
No.
If you talk to some of the guys, they're a couple hours
Just
in their
drag.
junk.
I mean, anything over about 70 horsepower in a Banshee is pretty much uncontrollable in anything but a straight line. 70, 80 horsepower is about the limit. You can't. It's not trailable. 60 horsepower was about the max around here for trailable with those because
You can't even
they were
really
just
ride
so
on the
fast.
road
Oh.
with that.
Oh yeah, we never rode them on the road.
Well, I meant with
Never.
No, my friend's brother. We were in his. I don't remember what car it was, but a long straight stretch of road where we live, flat straight stretch of road, and my buddy was in front of us on his Banshee. He had the same motor kit from CT Racing I had, but he had a +1 front sprockets. He had 1 tooth bigger. The car was indicating like 94, 95, and he was walking. I'm not kidding either. I know there's a lot of speed fish stories, but this is
That is a
true.
legit.
Like this thing was walking away from us, and his tires were like this wide. I was like, man, if he blows a bead off those tires, because they are not rated for that. He blows a bead off there, he's dead, but he survived. So
He survived.
He lived.
I'm only telling the story because he survived. Had he not survived?
And this was a closed course. This wasn't a highway.
Yeah, definitely. A close shutdown runway, airport runway you had to run it.
By far the fastest 4-wheeler I've ever had down. I mean, they would cruise 75 miles an hour. They would cruise like nothing. After the T5s. It's bone stock with those stock pipes. I think they'd go like 70, 72. And they just shut down, because of the pipes. But with those aftermarket, I could probably get mine with the stock gearing probably right around low 80s. He could really outrun me on that. But I mean, on a quad, it's
That's
and
good.
I
don't know if I'd
and
want to do that.
that was MX porting too. That wasn't dune porting, which was mid-range porting. Like it wasn't top-end porting. Like so they would really scream up top if they got like dune porting in them.
I always wanted to ride one, but
Oh man.
I never did. Tom even had one.
never ran right. But he
Did
had
you know
one.
he got one there for a little bit? He had a.
Yeah, I did.
It didn't run right, but I still wanted to ride one just to say I rode one.
Because
got the experience.
when he first showed me.
Wow! It's just like it's so anemic, and then all of a sudden just kapow! Like it's you have a two-stroke power band on dirt bikes, but I mean that times like 3.
He had issues with his clutch on his. It was
on a Banshee.
Yeah, it would slip so bad you couldn't.
Yeah, we had Barnett clutches in ours, aftermarket clutches with heavy-duty springs in them. And
bought that thing for like $500 off a coworker.
a Banshee.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
parked
Wow.
it, and it was the purple and yellow one. I think it was like some limited edition something or other.
Yeah.
And he bought it. The thing was as stiff as a brick. I think the shocks were locked up on it or something like that. He got them free, got it running pretty decent, but it slipped. My RM250 would smoke it. It wasn't a fast bike.
Yeah.
Like, they would just walk away from him. Now I looked at him. I said, just take it apart, take the side cover off, and pull the clutch, the springs and stuff out of it, and check them, make sure they're not broken, something like that. Because that RM250 had the same problem, but it was a broken spring in the clutch basket. Sold it for $800 to a guy at work because he didn't want to mess with it. I was like, what? We didn't even
I
know.
would have bought that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Didn't even tell us he sold it. We're just like, we would have bought that.
We had pro-designed cool heads on them.
You could still
We had
get those.
high volume water pumps. What else do we have on those? Stock carburetors. ProFlow air intake system where you had an aluminum flange and you bolted it on the airbox. But one modification we did is we cut big holes in our airbox, just one big hole in the airbox, and we took a piece of what is that stuff that the breathable fabric that filters out the dust? It's the filter fabric.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like they call it frog skin.
No, it's what is that stuff? But anyway, we put that over the box and then trap it with a lid, and that kept all the sand out of it, all the sand out of the box when we were in the dunes. Like no sand got in the box, so it was just real fine dust that would go and get on the outside of the filter, and it was super easy to clean. We never had to clean our filters in a week out there running in the sand because we were so well set up for it.
Wow, that's good. That's
What-
pretty cool to hear.
Oh come on, what is the name of that stuff?
They
Still make it. They still sell it.
They used it on the like air covers and stuff with like the KRXs and stuff like
They
that.
put it over K&N filters. Like it has like a
It's a pre-filter material.
Yeah.
It works really well. So
very good stuff. You just can't run it. You just got to watch how big of an area you're drawing through because it'll affect your jetting if you. What is that stuff? It was. Man, come on, Craig.
I think it's cool to see like how back in older machines, people would always, no matter what they had, to get faster, they would build them, always build them, no matter what it was. I remember my dad back with his three-wheeler. He had a 110 or something like that, I think is what it was. And they just, oh yeah, I built that thing. That thing was one of the fastest three-wheelers around, with all my buddies. And it's like, for me to get something faster, I just go buy a different bike.
I guess say nowadays somebody tells you they have a built buggy, it's check out the sound system and all the light bars I put on it.
All you have to do is like just get a newer machine. Like back then, it's like you take your machine, what you got, build it. And I mean, I'm not saying that people don't do that all the time. Now they do definitely, but like a fast bike back then was somebody that took what everybody had and built it. Now it's like I just get a new 450.
It's outerwears material. Outerwears. Did you ever hear of it?
No.
It looks like it's this stuff right here.
Okay.
It's just like a really fine mesh plastic that goes over. It's great stuff. I mean,
Back to what you were saying, on these newer buggies, to get more performance, with everything being electronic through the ECM, all you gotta do is just buy a programmer for it, retune it, and
you can gain like
a lot more horsepower out of it. Yeah.
And then
you don't even have to get into the engine.
Well, I mean, look at your X4. I mean, you did sheaves. You did. I don't know what all you did do to that. You did sheaves, but that was about the only big thing. Really.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I did the sheaves and then just the.
But then now with your RMAX, it's exhaust tuner. It's really simple stuff compared to back. At least, I mean, this is my opinion.
Not tearing into the motor.
You're not tearing into
to bore it out or anything.
Sheaves and stuff ain't very expensive either. They're fairly affordable. It's just if you don't know what you're doing, they're not that great.
I just think it's cool to see how technology's changed to where it takes so much less to get so much more power.
And again, machines are coming from the factory with a lot more power to begin with. So
yeah,
I mean, but like you said, you just buy a new buggy or a new dirt bike or new whatever else because I mean, if you price what it costs to build an old bike, an old buggy to match any of the newer stuff, it's almost price of the buggy plus the price of building the engine. I mean, you could have $5-6 grand into an engine just to have it even compare to a new buggy, and you could put that 10 grand plus whatever you sell your buggy for, and have almost that new buggy cash out of pocket.
Perfect example, Raging Rhino.
We had 3. Well, into the engine itself, we had about 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you guys did it yourself.
So we saved on
I mean,
huge labor
You saved
costs.
probably $3,000-4,000 on labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But it's just crazy. The way everything got expensive, it's just easier to buy new machines than it is to build new machines. It's, a lot of the aftermarket stuff's starting to dwindle.
did we just happen to stumble across our next topic? Building machines from the past versus building machines nowadays?
That'd be an interesting topic.
I've never built a machine, but I've put some aftermarket parts on.
But you can do research.
Every change we made to those 2-stroke Banshees just was night and day. I mean, everything you did.
So
It's also hard, like you said, you could put a tuner on stuff now, build it with the tuner. But if you don't know how to run the tuner, you don't know what programming to use, you don't know how to get your tunes and stuff, you change anything on these newer buggies and don't know how to tune it, you're screwed.
You're affecting the timing on the tuners too, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to know what you're doing. And that's why people don't mess with it anymore either.
And they probably also figure, you're spending 30 grand on a machine now, and you don't really want to mess with it too much.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, for like the 168 turbos, you put an exhaust and a tuner on it goes from 168 horsepower to like almost 190 just with an exhaust and a tuner. And that's not even building much more boost. That's just taking the the cats and stuff out, opening the exhaust up so it breathes better, so the turbo breathes better, it spools sooner, it holds its own.
Brakes quicker.
Yeah, it still has yet to be a build as awesome as what is the Mighty Mouse, I gotta say. I mean, that's just no build can beat Mighty Mouse.
7 pounds of boost, 8 pounds of boost in that?
7 right now.
So you're 1 pound more than a Razor.
Look at that!
That did come together really nice.
And it works really well. You would think,
Yeah.
why
I
would you
haven't
turbo
really-
a Pioneer 500?
I haven't ridden in it since you got it.
I don't think
But
you
that-
know. You probably
It'll
haven't.
spin the
That
28s in
hill
third
climb-
gear.
That hill climb at Rock Run, that one that's not real long, but real steep.
It's pretty steep.
And it screamed up that, like
And-
second or third gear, right?
I was in second before I had to be down in low and
Low
just
and just
crawl
barely made
and,
it.
and I'm thinking I'm not gonna make it, but I probably could have shifted into third and been
Yeah.
up that. With
You had
the
the torque.
start.
Big difference, man.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think this was a fun trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
Looking at our past machines, reminiscing on
Bring back
machines
the
we
two-stroke
wished we still had, like the 2-stroke Banshee.
Banshee.
Yeah.
If you have a Banshee you want to donate, get a hold of us.
Even
Yes.
just a motor. I will have a frame down there that's going to be missing a motor here probably this week or so.
I was thinking if I had to, use your go-kart as an experiment. I have a KX450 that if you want to put a 135 horsepower engine in, I would be more than happy to donate the bike. And then we could take the 450 and put it in.
He's only happy
Put
to
it in
donate it because he
Zippy's
knows
frame.
you won't ride it.
Yeah.
It's going to be.
I'd be afraid of killing myself on your 450 stock right now. I mean,
We do need to put that in a video, by the way.
Still a video
Well,
I want to
we
see. You look
ride-
like a rag doll going across the field.
My feet hanging out there, guys!
Oh, it'd be worth it.
I think we got ourselves a prank video. You getting on, act like you're riding it, and then someone else.
You're gonna spoil it now, Dan.
You cut it out.
Actually,
I could actually.
seriously, cut that out.
Well, no, we yeah, I mean, I'm gonna cut this out, but we had talked about that,
Yeah.
making it look like I'm riding your four.
We're doing it.
And then at the end, I actually come up on like a little Coleman 200 mini bike from Royal King. Be like, what's up, guys? What you think?
I've got a topic. Errors committed by the motorsports industry, like Honda. Errors like
Things
just
they
like
should be doing, they're not doing.
right, like just big holes in products that like for example the Pioneer 700. If they just like we were talking about earlier, if they just put a 5 or 6 speed paddle shifter in there, and I mean that thing would sell. They'd sell 1 million units a year of that.
Well, let's elaborate. Let's finish out for this podcast here, and then I do have a good idea that could go along with that. Well, guys, I think I already said this. This was a good trip down memory lane, reminiscing on our old vehicles of the past. A lot of them I wish I still had. I wish I still had a Grizzly. Wouldn't mind having a Grizzly in the future, but price of them nowadays is like meh. But anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast. You guys have fun?
I did, yeah.
Bringing back old memories.
Kind of depresses me because I just wish I had more money to buy stuff.
And actually machine again, but
Yeah.
Dan, I will be nice and let you keep riding mine for time being, though. So driving.
Cool.
Like I said, I bought back the Wildcat Trail. We still have that, and I have trouble getting the title for that thing. So who knows how long I'm gonna have it for? So maybe at least another year. I at least got to keep it long enough. Now I've decided that when I'm done doing performance stuff on the R-Max, we got to pit them against each other again because the Wildcat stomped it before.
That's true. Yeah.
So we got to see if it will continue to stomp it after these performance goodies.
What was the fastest 0 to 30 for the Wildcat?
Oh, I can't remember right off the top of my head.
It's 2s, right?
Yeah.
The 09 Rhino got in the low 2.9s, 2.92 or something, or 2.9 something.
Mm-hmm. I think it's on my board. I think the one downstairs in the garage.
Oh, okay.
I think, but anyway, I thought this was a fun topic.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe you guys didn't think that was a very fun topic, but anyway, guys, I hope everyone enjoyed this podcast and had fun with us.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of ways some
Always
some good way-
remember.
Always remember to wear your safety belts and hard hats when working in construction zones.
So when you see flashing blue lights, never stop.
Never stop. When flashing red and blue lights means you need to get on the throttle and get off road somewhere where they can't follow you.
Wait, we're not live, right?
No, we're not live. So I can Dan, you're up.
Dan, I said he got really quiet.
Yeah. It works until it doesn't.
Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, listening. I don't know. I'm getting to that point where I'm starting to get sleep. What time is it?
I gotta ride a bike.
10 after 10. Dan's got to ride a bike, so.